Welcome back to the Raptors show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Lou, joined by Blake Murphy. We're going to finally hear those clips from practice today because a bit of confusion, at least based on sort of the way it was tweeted out. I think that there might just be some confusion that happened, at the press conference. So I'm looking forward to actually getting a sense of what actually went on in Raptors practice in terms of Darko and Scottie talking about what happened last night, the accountability piece, and all of that. So first we have a clip just of Scottie discussing that in detail with Michael Grange, who we're going to bring on after these clips.
I wanted to hear your version of how you ended up being off the bench and into the locker room before everyone else.
I was just like 2 or 3 seconds left in. I just left it in. So I just left it in.
Did you think the game was over, or you were just like kind of had enough at that point?
Nah, I was just 3 seconds left in. It was all going to the locker room. That's really it.
Going through this process,
how would that be a good look for your teammates, though?
Huh?
How would that be a good look for your teammates?
I don't know. Left the game early. I guess you said the equivalent viral, so it's a bad look. It was a mistake by my part. If it affected him in any way, it's a mistake by me.
The situation you're in, kind of the leader of the team, and
I think we're all leaders.
one of the leaders. And so, but when you're kind of the emotion you play with, when it's good, it's very obvious. The whole building, but at times it looks like you get frustrated there, and you see it sometimes when you're hand on your head or slow to get back in time. So, is that something that's been pointed out to you? Is something you're aware of?
I think more when I'm frustrated or emotional, it's more on my part. I had like 4 turnovers in that first quarter. So just frustrated, mad at myself. Just got to take care of the ball, and it led to easy, fast break points. Showing emotion, not getting back, and it costs us on our part. So it's more me being frustrated myself in the way I'm playing, and it's not really nothing to do with everybody else. Just more frustrated on my part.
But I guess is it you kind of recognize that the camera's on you all the time, the whole building's watching you. It's something that you got to be a little bit conscious of, or
I guess the camera's watching me. I guess just playing the game and just trying to win. Not really caring with the cameras. I'm just trying to play to win, help the team win any way possible.
Okay. Blake, what did you think of that first off before we play the Darko's half of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little disappointing given the way Darko framed it. And again, we're going to play Darko's part. But, we came on here at 2 o'clock. Scottie hadn't spoke yet. We were only reacting to the Darko side. And Darko presented a much more accountable version of Scottie Barnes than Scottie Barnes presented there, where, the typical, like, if it offended someone, then I apologize kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Pushing back on Grange, calling him a leader of the team, to say we're all leaders, which is like true, but you want to take on some ownership there. And I don't know, it just it didn't seem like to him, he thought it was a big deal at all, which is, your prerogative. And again, I keep couching this to make sure it's clarified because I know how sound bites work and stuff like that. Like, it's not the end of the world. He can improve from this and learn from it and get better. But yeah, the day after and after having talked to the coaches, that's not exactly the messaging you probably would have preferred as the Raptors. You probably would have liked a little bit more straightforward accountability of, that's my bad. I shouldn't have done that. I understand why that's a bad look while teammates are still on the court playing and scoring their first career buckets. And the we were all leaving the court. No, they weren't. There was nobody around you. It was only you that left the court. So, and then the no, we didn't talk about that element of it that also didn't make it, which we'll play now, is not great.
Right. Yeah. So let's run that second clip as well.
Leaving the bench, yeah, we did. We talked about it. He thought that it was a shot clock violation, that the siren was already off. He was not aware of it, and yes, we did have a talk this morning about it. I just brought awareness that him as a leader of the team, he has to be aware of those kind of things, and that he cannot overlook, and that obviously being that guy, you're going to be always under microscope. So he's aware of it, and he regrets his act from yesterday, but it was genuine just not being aware.
Has Darko, chatted with you about whether kind of leaving the court early or like just getting back on defense and those kind of things and effort plays recently?
No, we didn't have no conversation about it. We all know. I guess we all can see that I'm frustrated a little bit. I think that's more what it is.
You guys didn't have a meeting or anything this morning?
We talked about the game, but that was really the primary thing.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of confusion. It feels like we need the context around it because it's one of those things where if you only watch the video portion, maybe you don't get the full context. So let's talk to somebody who was actually there for that press conference, the man who was asking some of those questions himself. Michael Grange of Sportsnet. Grange, what should we we don't have Grange just quite yet. Okay, we are working to get Grange on the line. Sorry. Saw the note. But we will get to Grange's side of it because I think there is a confusion. Like, what exactly happened here? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, look.
Seriously, what is going on? It's making something that is obviously a bad look, but you could take accountability for it and then you just move on.
Yeah. So that's
it's making it into like a much more confusing ordeal. Like, is there not discussions? You know what I mean? Like, what is happening?
Look, the easy, well, not easy, but like the simplest read on this is they all talked about it and it was brought up. And in Scottie's mind, it wasn't like a meeting about that. And that's how he answered the question. Whereas Darko's trying to play the public messaging a little bit better. But yeah, this isn't a great thing. They came out of whether they had a meeting or it was just part of the film discussion or whatever. They're clearly not on the same page about the level of whether this was an issue and why exactly that was the case. And again, you can feel like it's a non-issue, but the team, the day after, the coach and the star player who left the court early should be on the same page about whether that was okay and why or why not.
Yeah. Okay. We do have Grange on the line. Grange, what exactly went on in practice today? And did they actually have a talk about what went wrong yesterday at the end of the game?
Well, not according to Scottie, right? And so I think, if we're really going to parse this, like Zapruder it type thing, which is kind of what we've been left to do, they did talk, but the talk was about the game. And if you kind of gone through this transcript a couple of times, when he's asked at one point, has Darko spoken to you about things like, getting back on defense, leaving the bench early last night? Like, that was the gist of that question. I'm pretty close to accurate on that, I think. And, he said there was no conversation. And then I asked, so you didn't have a meeting this morning? He said, well, we talked about the game. That was the primary thing. So there was a conversation. The subject of that conversation, Scottie didn't want to elaborate on or heard the conversation a little differently than Darko kind of explained it to us. I kind of looked through Darko's answer and, maybe we overinterpreted how significant or kind of specific this meeting was. But, I think we're kind of getting lost in the weeds here. I think really the headline is, this is what happens, and this is going to be part of the process when you have a guy who's, we all know, is extraordinarily talented, who's really in a job he's not ready for right now. And, he's learning on it. And, part of that is how he kind of comports himself on the floor. And when things aren't going the way they need to go, or he wants them to go, or he wish they would. And I'm not calling out saying he's like, it's a big, it's not like he's a menace or anything, but, we've seen it, like the kind of flailing of the arms, the refs, the kind of the slow runs back, that kind of stuff. And another part of it, and it's probably the least important, but it's not insignificant, is how he presents, his face and they call it face of the franchise, right? And so it's how he presents the Raptors publicly in all kinds of contexts. But one of them is, in moments like this, when you've got drilled by one of the worst teams in the league and you're coming off 2 bad blowout losses, that you can kind of, present yourself in a way that's going to make things sound like they're going to be okay. Maybe that's a way to put it.
So Darko said he doesn't see the need for additional discipline here. I only bring it up because there was a situation like this, very similar, and none of us were there in Tampa Bay, but we certainly got the the reports and the intel that, hey, Pascal Siakam did this. Nick Nurse wasn't the one deciding that there was I guess technically they called it benching, not suspension, because suspension gets into some CBA and labor stuff. But he got sat down for a game. So there is precedent not that long ago, player in a similar spot kind of being handed the keys for, not the first time, but hey, you're the leader now. You can't act that way. I only ask this because that precedent is there. But after Scottie's, presser today and that, not lack of accountability, but not accountability to the same degree that Darko had painted there. Do you think Darko will feel similarly, that this is hey, let's just move on from it?
I think they will move on from it. I think it's worth kind of mentioning too in this context is, so sure you could discuss that situation with Pascal. There was I think 26 seconds left. He fouled out, left the floor, in an empty arena in Tampa, and kind of heard about it later. But it was interesting when, and I brought it up to Darko, and I brought it up to Scottie too, that this is the context with which we're pursuing this. In my list of basketball sins, a disgusted player walking off the floor with 2 seconds left or whatever number it was, having just got your butt kicked, and his in particular, that's not really all that high on it for me. That's just my own personal.
Right.
He's, and similarly when it happened with Pascal, I don't know all the background to it, but a guy fouling out, getting drilled, and not having a great night, and decides to walk it off. Again, they made it a big deal. I didn't, and so, so that was the context. So I brought it up to Darko, to be fair. And he says, well, no, it was a different situation. There was 3 minutes left. And no, there was 26 seconds left. And I only mention this because at some point, somebody should have made the effort to go, this is why people will be asking about this. This is why people are making what seems like a small thing into a slightly bigger thing, because as you point out, it's happened before and this is how it was handled. And similarly, when I mentioned it to Scottie, it was the first he'd ever heard of it, or it seemed like it was the first he'd ever heard of it. He seemed surprised by the whole thing. And those are little things where I think an organization can support a player and make sure that everyone's kind of knows what's happening and why this seemingly innocuous thing, some people have a different standard for it. I'm just saying it's not something that would have kind of jumped off the page for me, other than it's happened before. And so, so that's where that's a little bit of a wrinkle here that's kind of interesting is one, the coach was aware of it, but didn't really understand specifically the issue. And then the player had no clue about it in terms of the context. And, I think that probably would have been worth making sure everything was nailed down on as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the end of the game, honestly, at that point, the result was already over. It didn't affect the impact of the game. So, that's one thing. I think the bigger thing is just how, engaged and how connected he is, play to play, quarter to quarter, minute to minute, that you needed to see during the game. That could have actually changed the impact of the game, was getting back in transition. And you can make a whole reel of just moments where he didn't get back in transition, or, missed opportunities offensively here or there, whatever. That happens. That to me is the bigger thing. Honestly, even how you present yourself to the media, to be honest, that's not really controllable in a way. You know what I mean? He just is what he is, and I think for me, that's much, much less important than, how engaged are you in terms of running back in transition, and I think that almost when we have this whole big discussion about Pascal did this, is he going to also get that's fine. I think the bigger thing is just in the game, just stay engaged and compete the entire way through. And that's not to mean that he doesn't do that sometimes. Some games he's the hardest competitor. I mentioned after the Cleveland game, he was awesome in that game. So connected, so engaged. Didn't change the result, but I loved the game that he played, and he had a triple-double. The next game, though, you see the lacking. So that's, to me, the bigger issue here.
Right. And it's all, again, like I said, this is a guy who's been put into a situation that everyone is hoping he'll eventually grow into. And, there's reason for that. We've seen it plenty of times. I mean, this guy's pretty special. But, he is not there. He is not there yet. And really, kind of the game-to-game fluctuations with, I wouldn't say his effort or energy level, but sort of his ability to deal with frustration as it's unfolding in a game. It's not probably where it needs to be. And I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to hold him to a standard that's unrealistic, but I think it needs to get better. And I think, these are sort of the situations you find yourself in. And I think, the organization needs to kind of really make sure that these kinds of things are being addressed. And I think the broader context here a little bit with Scottie is a lot of the kind of narrative last year was a kind of a friction, I guess, between some of the older guard, and we can probably safely say that's Fred, and some of the younger guys and Scottie, and sorry, my wife is calling me. She doesn't know I'm on the radio.
It's all right. We got interrupted by a cat last segment, and we're all good.
It's all good, but and that was sort of kind of the crux of that is this guy is being offered a lot and being given a ton of responsibility, a ton of opportunity, and in other ways, is he ready for it the way he's going to need to be? And I think last year the answer was probably no. I think this year we've all seen tremendous progress, but now he's on an island, right? And if you kind of look at kind of one of the subplots last night was, and we've seen it multiple times. If you look at that Oklahoma City game as well, and we talk about lack of engagement or maybe, not looking like he's kind of, well, guess he's getting guarded by, right?
Yep.
Like Jeremy Sochan was in his shirt, and behind him was Wembanyama. And at this stage of his career, Scottie wasn't really prepared, and there wasn't anyone who could lift that burden for him. Lou Dort made him disappear at the end of that OKC game. I look back at the Clippers game in LA when Kawhi Leonard decided for a quarter to play defense, and Scottie had no answer. OG Anunoby against him in New York, same thing. Now, Scottie Barnes isn't the only person who can't manage that kind of attention, because those are some of the best defenders in the league. But the job is to figure that out. The job is to be able to counter that threat either with your own ability and your own skill, or use your own ability and skill to allow your teammates to affect the game. And that's something that against some really elite defensive attention he struggled with, and I think sometimes those struggles carry over into how he carries himself and comports himself.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the other part too, is just bigger picture wise. It's on him now. Like, it's, for example, Quickly had a bad game last night. RJ, I didn't think it was that effective either. There's very little discussion about those two other elements, but that's because we expect way more of Scottie.
They're not getting the rookie scale extension Supermax this summer.
Right. So it's like, even the financial part, I'm whatever. I mean, obviously I want to resign Scottie.
It's more about like what, I don't mean the dollar amount. I mean what that signifies. Like, only a dozen guys in the league get that. Yeah, but I mean, like, the path to this whole thing working is Scottie taking it to the next level. He's the leader on the court, off the court, everything. Like, the franchise player means franchise player. You know what I mean? And so these moments of growth are actually going to be pretty important, because we're always going to be there celebrating every single moment of success. When he makes the All-Star, when he makes Rookie of the Year, when he has a great game. Last time when they played Wemby, they came back and won, and we were all here being like, wow, Scottie outplayed Wemby. And made that comeback in the fourth quarter in his gym. That was amazing. Won it in overtime. That was all incredible, right? But then I think there are other steps too. And this is the other really important part of development, is like, you need to reflect on these things and just like improve and get better from it. And when it gets put in the spotlight, hopefully there is a response. That's all I'm hoping for. Like, fine, he plays the next game against the Pacers, against Pascal tomorrow. Come out with a response. The best case scenario for the Raptors tomorrow, literally for their own pick because they own Indiana's pick, but also narratively for the franchise going forward, is Scottie goes out, puts up a 30-point triple-double, and they beat the Pacers. They shut down Pascal. Probably he shuts down Pascal. And all of a sudden, you feel really good about, hey, they pivoted in this direction. We now see why. But
yeah, I mean, no, I agree with you. And I think that's completely on the table. But, and I'll reference Darko in this. I don't think this will be the last time we kind of look at, because we sort of over scrutinize, it's inevitable. but and we see something and find a shortcoming, but it just can't be. I think the concern is that you fall into a pattern um, of stagnation, and maybe that was a bit of the story for a big chunk of last year. And I think really this year, as great as he's been, like his December and January production is not nearly where it was. Sorry, his January and February production is, yeah, like for the past month, his production has fallen off pretty significantly, and or measurably. And is that going to be the story? Is he going to sort of kind of have post All-Star kind of coast to the finish line, or is he going to reach to another level? Like, to Blake's point, they're just you measure it by the money, but really it's the direction of an enterprise that is being invested in this guy. And so details matter. And it's not just wins or losses, it is careers, it's jobs. There's a lot of people are, say nothing of fans, right? Who are spending good money after bad and supporting something that is so dear to them. And they're kind of rising and falling with all of this. But, the trajectory of an organization is affected by its players. And, things don't go right. We know what happens. People do lose jobs. People do things go badly for other people. And so that's why it's important, the sooner an athlete kind of grasps that and understands that it's more than just, having a good game or having a bad game, the further along everyone gets. And, nobody's doubting, I don't think, Scottie's passion for the game. Nobody's doubting his talent, certainly. He's by all accounts, good character. Like he's never been any issues or problems, but it's, when somebody's going to be writing the kind of checks he's going to be getting, it's fair, I think, for the expectations to be very high.
Yeah. Okay. Really quickly, just to both of you, do you feel like Darko's the kind of coach, based on what he's shown so far and the relationships he's established, to just handle accountability going forward? Not about Scottie, just in general.
We're going to find out.
We're about to find out. Okay, good answer.
Real quick, I mean, he was asked that, and he says, "Look, I'm never going to hang my guy out to dry in public.
Clearly,
but in private, the conversations are direct, they're honest, and he's willing to go to go into those directions." And I have asked questions of previous players, guys he's worked with in the past, and he does have that reputation that it's like he builds a relationship strong enough that he can be honest enough that he can tell players what they really need to hear. And
okay, that's good.
Doing it at the NBA level, I mean, it's a different beast, right? But that's how he answered that question when we asked him today.
Okay, well, I think to Blake's point, we will see, and hopefully there's a big response tomorrow. But Granger, I appreciate you. I'm sure you weren't expecting this exciting of a practice when you went down there today.
Never a dull moment.